Chapter 152. There and Back Again. Outside, the sun was already moving past its zenith. There wasn't that much time left before the sun set, so Sunny was really unsure about what Nephis could do to change Effie's mind before evening. However, judging by the determined expression on her face, Changing Star wasn't just throwing words to the wind. She had something specific in mind. He hesitated. So, what exactly are we going to do now? Neph glanced at him, white flames dancing in the depths of her cold gray eyes. Then, she turned away and said, "Follow me." With that, she walked forward in the direction of the castle. Castle? Why are we going to the castle? Somewhat uneasy, Sunny gently took Cassie by the arm and hurried to catch up to Nephis. When he did, she suddenly threw over her shoulder. "Tell me about that Pathfinder again, the one who was accused of murder 3 days ago." Sunny frowned, then repeated what he knew about the guy. When he was almost finished, she asked, "What's his aspect ability?" He hesitated, then said, "He can make any weapon become incredibly sharp when it's in his hands. Sharp enough to cut stone, maybe even steel. It's a very powerful combat ability." Changing Star was quiet for some time, then said, "What about his flaw?" Sunny shook his head. "That I have no idea about. People are very protective of their flaws, you know. Not everyone goes around telling everyone about their greatest vulnerability like that lunatic Effie." Cassie, who seemed to be very protective of him today, decided to support this claim. "Sunny is right, Neph. We don't even know what his own flaw is, remember?" Sunny almost stumbled, and had to try very hard to not let any emotion show on his face. Cassie was right, of course. While Changing Star and she had shared their flaws with him, Sunny never reciprocated the gesture. For obvious reasons. "That is true, but, can we not talk about that?" Nephis silently nodded and didn't comment on it further. It seemed as though her mind was on something else. Phew. Soon, they scaled the magnificent stairs and were approaching the gates of the castle. Sunny was growing increasingly nervous about Neph's intentions. "What is her plan, exactly?" Neph? What do you need us to do?" She shrugged, then said in her usual indifferent tone, "You don't really need to do anything. Just follow me and try to look, virtuous." "Look, virtuous? What is that supposed to mean?" The guards standing watch in front of the gates blocked their path with contemptuous and suggestive looks in their eyes. Contempt was directed toward Sunny, while the rest was directed toward the girls, of course. "Stop. What business do you have in the Bright Castle? Want to pay the tribute? Or maybe want to get paid instead, if you know what I mean?" Both of them laughed, making Sunny's blood boil. Nephis looked at them with a calm expression, then said, "I want to go inside, but I'm not going to pay tribute." The laughter suddenly stopped. The guards looked at them with a bit of amusement, a harsh and dangerous light finding its way into their eyes. "Have you lost your mind, wench? Why are you here if you're not going to pay tribute? Stop wasting our time!" Changing Star stared at them with no emotion whatsoever showing on her beautiful ivory face. Then, she said evenly, "I'm here to invoke the right of challenge." For a few seconds, everyone stayed silent. Sunny's heart was beating like a wild beast in his chest. Mad! She has gone mad! But no, Changing Star was not mad. Although Sunny liked to joke inwardly about how crazy Nephis was, she was anything but. In fact, her ability to remain cool-headed and rational in any situation was one of the main reasons that made her so dangerous, which meant that there was some opportunity she saw here that he didn't. At least he hoped that this was the case. Meanwhile, one of the guards frowned. "Stop joking around, little girl. Shut your mouth and get lost if you want to live." Neph didn't move. Instead, she said, "I'm not joking." The other guard stared at her, then shook his head. "Those slum rats have really all gone crazy, huh? I thought that this recent show would teach them a lesson, but it seems as though it did not." He sneered. "Listen, lass. The right of challenge is not a laughing matter. It's a fight to the death. No one is going to go easy on you just because you have a pretty face. Do you understand?" Changing Star simply nodded. The guard waited for a while, looking at her tall figure and the crude tunic that she wore. Then he grimaced. "I guess we'll have some entertainment today. Oh, such a shame. With your looks, you could have lived in the castle without ever even needing to pay the tribute." Shaking his head, he turned around and gestured for the three of them to follow. The other guard stayed behind, a bewildered and darkly excited expression on his face. With the sound of the rusty chains swinging in the wind invading their ears, Sunny, Nephis, and Cassie passed beneath the hanging skulls and entered the castle. Inside, everything was exactly the same. Even Harper was still sitting behind his opulent desk, writing something on a piece of parchment. Hearing the sound of footsteps, he raised his head and threw a furtive glance in their direction. An expression of confused surprise appeared in his eyes. Sunless and Cassia, what are you guys doing back here?" Sunny felt the desire to palm his face. When he had said to the gaunt young man that they might see each other in the future, he certainly did not mean that that future would be on the same damn day. Not knowing about the thoughts raging in his head, Harper smiled. "Oh, did you guys get lucky and come into some shards? Back all ready to pay the tribute?" Sunny gritted his teeth and forced out a weak smile. No, not exactly.